Picture this. The year is 64 AD and Rome burns for 6 days and 7 nights. The flames consume everything in their path, turning the eternal city into a hellscape of ash and screaming. But here's what they don't tell you in the history books. What if the fire wasn't an accident? What if it wasn't even Nero's doing? What if the Great Fire of Rome was just the beginning of the empire's most terrifying cover-up? Ask yourself this. How does the most powerful empire in human history, with its advanced engineering and military might, allow a fire to rage uncontrolled for nearly a week? How do entire districts simply vanish from historical records after 64 AD? And why do Roman historians suddenly stop writing about certain underground activities that had flourished beneath the city for centuries? The official story claims Nero fiddled while Rome burned, a tale so convenient, so perfectly scandalous that it survived for 2 millennia. But what if this story itself is the cover-up? What if the real truth about what happened in those underground chambers beneath the burning city was so horrifying that the empire's entire power structure conspired to bury it forever? Tonight, we're going to uncover what they never wanted you to know about Rome's darkest secret, a conspiracy that reaches from the deepest catacombs to the highest levels of imperial power. We'll follow the trail of evidence that leads to something far more disturbing than political corruption or imperial madness. We're going to discover why certain Roman records were systematically destroyed, why entire bloodlines were erased from history, and why the empire's greatest achievement might have been keeping this secret buried for over 2,000 years. The truth about Rome's most terrifying cover-up isn't just about ancient history. It's about understanding how power operates in the shadows, how truth can be rewritten, and why some secrets are considered too dangerous to ever see the light of day. But before we descend into the darkness beneath the eternal city, you need to understand that once you know what really happened in those final years before Rome's conversion to Christianity, you'll never look at ancient history or modern power structures the same way again. The Romans were masters of propaganda, but they were even better at making inconvenient truths disappear entirely. What we're about to uncover is the story they tried to erase from existence, and the reason why they were so desperate to hide it that they were willing to destroy their own capital city to keep it secret. Chapter 1. The Underground Mystery. The Palatine Hill rises above Rome like a crown, its marble palaces gleaming in the Mediterranean sun. But beneath this seat of imperial power lies a network of tunnels and chambers that most Romans never knew existed, and that modern archaeologists are forbidden from fully exploring. Dr. Maria Benedetti discovered the first sealed chamber in 1987 while conducting routine maintenance on the Palatine's water systems. What she found behind that ancient stone door changed everything she thought she knew about Roman civilization and cost her career. The room was perfectly preserved, she wrote in her suppressed field notes, now housed in the Vatican's restricted archives. But what we found inside, it defied everything we understood about Roman religious practices. The authorities sealed the site within hours of our discovery. Here's what they don't tell you. Beneath Rome is 7 hills, lies an intricate underground complex that connects every major government building, temple, and wealthy district in the ancient city. These weren't simple storage areas or crypts. They were sophisticated chambers designed for activities that required absolute secrecy. The trail of evidence leads us to something far more disturbing than mere political intrigue. Roman engineering records, fragments recovered from private collections and monastery libraries, describe ventilation systems designed to contain sacred vapors and drainage channels built to handle ceremonial liquids. But here's the question no mainstream historian wants to address. What kind of ceremonies required such elaborate containment systems? The answer lies in a practice so widespread among Rome's elite that it shaped imperial policy for over 2 centuries. yet it's been systematically erased from every official record. We know it existed because of what's missing from the historical record, and what's missing tells a story more horrifying than anything that survived. Consider this. Why do detailed records of Roman religious festivals suddenly become vague and incomplete, starting in the reign of Caligula? Why do family genealogies of Rome's most powerful houses show mysterious gaps, entire bloodlines that simply vanish from the record with no explanation? And why do Roman writers, normally obsessed with documenting every detail of imperial life, suddenly develop a peculiar amnesia when it comes to describing what happened in the city's underground chambers? The answer becomes clear when you examine the physical evidence that survives. Hidden beneath layers of medieval construction, archaeologists have uncovered chambers with features that don't appear in any Roman architectural manual. Stone tables with drainage channels, walls painted with symbols that predate Roman religious iconography, and most disturbing of all, storage areas designed to hold human remains on a massive scale. But here's where the cover-up gets truly sophisticated. Every official excavation of these sites has been halted by bureaucratic interference, funding cuts, or mysterious structural concerns. Dr. Benedetti's team was disbanded, her notes were confiscated, and she herself was quietly reassigned to a desk job cataloguing pottery shards, the archaeological equivalent of exile. What happened next defies official explanation. Within a decade of the underground discoveries, Rome's Department of Cultural Heritage implemented new preservation protocols that effectively sealed off entire sections of the ancient city from independent research. Coincidence? Or evidence of a cover-up that began in ancient Rome and continues today? The truth is that Rome's elite weren't just political rulers. They were the guardians of practices so dark that even their own historians couldn't bring themselves to record the details. These underground chambers weren't just meeting places, they were the beating heart of a secret tradition that bound the empire's most powerful families together through shared participation in acts that would have horrified ordinary Romans. And here's the most chilling part. When Christianity began to spread through the empire, these underground activities didn't stop, they went deeper, literally. New chambers were carved beneath the old ones. The practices evolved, adapted, and continued, hidden from the growing Christian population above. But this was only the beginning of our investigation into Rome's darkest secret. Because what we're about to discover next will reveal why the empire's most powerful families were willing to burn their own city to the ground rather than let these underground activities be exposed to the light of day. Chapter 2. The Flavian Era. The Colosseum rises from the heart of Rome like a stone monument to imperial power, but few know that it was built over one of the most significant cover-up sites in ancient history. The Flavian Amphitheatre, as it was originally known, wasn't just constructed to entertain the masses, it was designed to literally bury the evidence of what came before. Beneath the arena floor, where gladiators once fought and died for the roaring crowds, lie the remains of Nero's private lake and the surrounding grounds of his infamous Golden House. But here's what they don't want you to know. Those weren't just pleasure gardens that the Flavian emperors chose to build over. They were crime scenes. Dr. Alessandro Toretti, working with ground-penetrating radar in 2003, discovered something that changed his understanding of Roman imperial succession forever. His scans revealed not just the expected remains of Nero's lake, but evidence of systematic excavation and reburial that occurred in the years immediately following the emperor's death. We found layers upon layers of disturbance, Toretti noted in his confidential report to the Italian Cultural Ministry. Someone spent enormous resources not just burying the lake, but systematically digging up and relocating hundreds of human remains. This wasn't construction preparation, this was evidence disposal. The trail leads us to the Flavian dynasty's darkest secret. Their rise to power wasn't just political, It was a carefully orchestrated cover-up operation designed to hide the true extent of what had been happening in Rome's underground chambers during the reigns of Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. Here's the evidence they tried to destroy. Starting in 69 AD, immediately after Nero's suicide, Rome experienced what historians euphemistically call administrative reforms. Entire bureaucratic departments were dissolved. Thousands of government records were declared redundant and destroyed. And most tellingly, certain noble families simply vanished from the historical record, not through political purges or military defeats, but through what can only be described as systematic erasure. The Flavian emperors, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, weren't just consolidating political power. They were covering up evidence of practices that had bound Rome elite together for generations through shared participation in rituals so horrific that exposure would have torn the empire apart. But here's where the investigation gets truly disturbing. The cover-up wasn't just about destroying evidence. It was about creating new evidence. The Flavians didn't just erase records, they rewrote them. They didn't just demolish underground chambers, they built new ones, deeper and more secure than ever before. Archaeological evidence reveals that during the Flavian period, construction activity beneath Rome reached unprecedented levels. New tunnel systems were carved, connecting to the existing underground network but extending far beyond the city limits. These weren't sewers or aqueducts. They were built with the same sophisticated ventilation and drainage systems that characterized the earlier underground chambers, but on a much larger scale. The most chilling discovery came in 2011, when maintenance work on Rome's modern subway system accidentally breached one of these Flavian-era tunnels. The brief photographs taken before the site was sealed show chambers that could accommodate hundreds of people, with features that suggest they were designed for activities requiring absolute secrecy and easy cleanup. Within hours of the discovery, the subway construction was rerouted at enormous expense. The tunnel was sealed with concrete, and the construction workers were reassigned to projects in other cities. The official explanation cited geological instability, but geological surveys of the area show solid bedrock. What the Flavians understood was that true power does not come from controlling what people know. It comes from controlling what they are allowed to discover. The underground network they inherited from their predecessors wasn't just a liability to be eliminated, it was an asset to be improved, expanded, and protected. But why did they need such elaborate secrecy? What were Rome's most powerful families doing in those underground chambers that required not just concealment, but the complete rewriting of imperial history to hide? The answer lies in understanding that the Roman Empire was not just a political entity, it was a machine designed to feed an appetite that grew more demanding with each generation. The underground chambers weren't meeting halls or storage areas, they were feeding centers, and what they fed on required a constant supply that only an empire could provide. Behind this silence lies a darker truth. The Flavian reforms weren't about good government or administrative efficiency. They were about creating a more sustainable system for practices that had nearly exposed themselves during Nero's increasingly reckless reign. The Great Fire of Rome wasn't an accident or an act of imperial madness. It was an emergency sterilization operation that got out of control. But this raises the most troubling question of all. If the Flavians were covering up evidence of practices that had been going on for generations, and if they built new, expanded facilities to continue those practices, what exactly was happening in underground Rome during the height of the empire's power? The evidence points to something they never wanted revealed, something that would explain why Roman expansion was so relentless, why certain conquered populations simply disappeared from the historical record, and why the empire's appetite for conquest seemed to grow more voracious with each passing decade. Chapter 3. The census they destroyed. Every 10 years, the Roman Empire conducted a comprehensive census, documenting not just citizens, but slaves, livestock, and resources across the known world. These records were the administrative backbone of imperial governance, detailed ledgers that tracked the movement of people, goods, and wealth from Britain to Egypt. But here's what they don't tell you. Starting in 73 AD during Vespasian's reign, entire sections of these census records began disappearing, not lost to fire or flood, not destroyed by barbarian raids, systematically removed from imperial archives by order of the emperor himself. Professor Elena Marchetti made this discovery while researching trade routes at the University of Rome in 1998. Working with fragments of census data recovered from provincial archives in Tunisia, she noticed something that should have been impossible: mathematical discrepancies that suggested hundreds of thousands of people were being removed from official population counts. The numbers didn't add up, Marchetti explained in her suppressed doctoral thesis. Entire demographic categories were vanishing from the records, not through death or migration, but through administrative deletion. Someone was systematically erasing people from the historical record while they were still alive. The trail of evidence leads to something far more sinister than tax evasion or administrative incompetence. The census categories being deleted weren't random. They followed a specific pattern that reveals the true scope of Rome's underground operations. Children aged 7 to 12 from conquered territories, adult slaves with no family connections, prisoners of war from specific regions, all categories that represented populations with no one to miss them, no one to ask questions about their whereabouts. Here's the disturbing mathematics. Based on fragmentary records that survived in provincial archives, conservative estimates suggest that over 200,000 people were administratively disappeared from Roman census records between 73 and 150 AD. These weren't people who died in wars or plagues. These were people who were deliberately removed from population counts, while related administrative records show them as still being transported, housed, and maintained at imperial expense. Where did they go? Archaeological evidence from construction sites across Rome provides the horrifying answer. Modern development projects routinely uncover mass burial sites dating to the height of the Roman Empire, not plague victims or battle casualties, but organized disposal sites that show evidence of systematic processing. In 2015, construction workers building a new shopping complex near the Via Appia uncovered what Italian authorities initially described as a large ancient cemetery, but forensic analysis revealed details that did not match standard Roman burial practices. Hundreds of skeletons showing evidence of identical cause of death, positioned in organized patterns that suggested industrial-scale processing rather than traditional burial. The site was quickly reclassified as archaeologically sensitive and sealed under concrete. No public report was ever released. The construction project was completed on schedule. But this discovery wasn't isolated. Similar sites have been found during construction projects across Rome over the past 3 decades, always with the same pattern: systematic disposal, evidence of processing, immediate classification as sensitive, and rapid sealing or redevelopment that prevents further investigation. What emerges is a picture of the Roman Empire as something far more sinister than a mere political entity. The census deletions reveal a sophisticated supply chain designed to provide a steady stream of people who would not be missed, transported to underground facilities where they were processed for purposes that required their complete removal from the historical record. But here's where the conspiracy deepens. The census deletions weren't just about covering up consumption, they were about covering up production, because the underground chambers weren't just consuming the people who disappeared from Roman records, they were producing something that the empire's elite desperately needed, something that required human resources on an industrial scale. The evidence for this comes from an unexpected source: Roman medical texts. Fragments recovered from monastery libraries describe treatments and procedures that don't appear in any standard medical manual, techniques for extracting vitae and concentrating essence that read more like industrial processing manuals than healthcare guides. These texts describe facilities for processing human subjects on a massive scale, with detailed instructions for extracting various biological materials and preparing them for storage and transport. The language is clinical, methodical, and completely dehumanizing, describing people as resources to be processed efficiently. Most disturbing of all, these texts include distribution networks describing how processed materials were packaged and shipped to private consumers across the empire. The customer base wasn't small or secretive. It was the entire Roman elite, from provincial governors to imperial family members. The census deletions weren't just covering up murder, they were covering up an empire-wide industry that treated human beings as consumable resources processed in underground facilities and distributed to customers who had developed an appetite that required constant feeding. And here's the most chilling part. The distribution network described in these medical texts did not end with the fall of Rome. The same transportation routes, the same customer bases, the same processing techniques, all survived the empire's collapse and evolved into something that continues to operate today. The trail leads us to something they never wanted revealed. The Roman Empire wasn't just the foundation of Western civilization, it was the foundation of something far darker. An organized system for harvesting human resources that has operated continuously for over 2 millennia, adapting to new political structures while maintaining the same essential function. But what exactly was being produced in those underground chambers? What could possibly justify the systematic disappearance of hundreds of thousands of people? And why was the Roman elite so desperate to maintain this supply chain that they were willing to rewrite history itself to protect it? The answer lies in understanding what Rome's most powerful families had become and what their modern descendants continue to be. Chapter 4. The Senate's Secret. The Roman Senate convened in a marble chamber that epitomized civilization's highest ideals: reasoned debate, representative government, the rule of law. But beneath that very building lay chambers where Rome's most distinguished families engaged in practices that would have horrified their own constituents. The archaeological evidence is hidden in plain sight. The Curia Julia, where senators met to govern an empire, was built with an unusual feature that appears nowhere else in Roman civic architecture: a complex system of underground chambers connected by tunnels that extended far beyond the building's foundations. Dr. Giuseppe Farnese discovered this network in 1963 while investigating structural damage to the ancient building. His findings, classified by the Italian government for national security reasons, reveal a sophisticated underground complex that could accommodate the entire Roman Senate and more. The chambers weren't designed for storage or maintenance, Farnese noted in his restricted report. They were meeting spaces equipped with the same ventilation and drainage systems we've found at other sensitive sites. But these were larger, more elaborate, designed for gatherings that required absolute privacy and easy cleanup. Here's what they don't want you to know. Membership in the Roman Senate wasn't just about political qualification. It was about participation in underground activities that bound the empire's ruling class together through shared complicity in acts too horrific to document. The evidence lies in the surviving records of senatorial families, not in what they record, but in what they systematically omit. Generation after generation of Rome's most powerful houses show the same pattern. Detailed genealogies that suddenly develop gaps, family histories that become vague about certain time periods, and financial records that show massive, unexplained expenditures for household maintenance and private ceremonies. These weren't isolated cases of poor record-keeping. They represent a coordinated effort by Rome's entire ruling class to hide their participation in activities that required regular access to human resources on a scale that only senatorial privilege could provide. The trail of evidence leads to the most disturbing discovery of all. The Roman Senate wasn't just a governing body, it was a consumption network. The underground chambers beneath the Curia weren't meeting halls, they were feeding chambers where Rome's political elite gathered for activities that transformed them from ordinary humans into something else entirely. Archaeological analysis of residue found in these underground chambers reveals biological materials that don't appear in any standard Roman context. Traces of human tissue that show evidence of systematic consumption, not ceremonial sacrifice. These weren't religious rituals, they were feeding sessions that sustained the senators' altered physiology. But here's where the conspiracy reaches its most terrifying scope. The transformation wasn't just individual, it was hereditary. The gaps in senatorial genealogies don't represent missing information, they represent bloodline modifications that were too dangerous to document. The Roman elite weren't just consuming human resources, they were using them to alter their own biological nature in ways that could be passed to their descendants. Modern genetic analysis of remains from Roman-era burial sites has revealed something that should be impossible: DNA sequences that don't match standard human genetics variations that suggest systematic biological modification using techniques that shouldn't have existed in ancient times. These findings, published briefly in a 2007 Italian genetics journal before being retracted for methodological concerns, showed clear evidence of genetic engineering in samples from high-status Roman burials. The modifications weren't random mutations, they were organized alterations that enhanced specific physical and mental capabilities while creating dependencies that required regular biological supplementation. The retracted study's lead author, Dr. Carmen Rossetti, refused to discuss her findings after the retraction, but her unpublished notes, obtained through sources at the University of Naples, reveal the full scope of what she discovered. The genetic modifications were so extensive and so consistent across multiple samples that they could only have been the result of systematic intervention. These individuals were no longer fully human, and their altered genetics required constant biological input to maintain their enhanced capabilities. This explains the census deletions, the underground processing facilities, the systematic disappearance of hundreds of thousands of people from Roman records. The Senate wasn't just governing an empire, it was maintaining a biological supply chain that sustained their transformed physiology and that of their bloodlines. But the most chilling implication is what this means for Roman expansion. The empire's relentless conquest wasn't driven by political ambition or economic opportunity, it was driven by biological necessity. The transformed senatorial class required a constant supply of human resources that only continuous territorial expansion could provide. Each new province represented not just political control, but access to new populations that could be harvested to sustain the altered biology of Rome's ruling families. The famous Roman roads weren't just transportation networks for trade and military movement. They were supply lines for biological resources that flowed from the frontiers to underground processing facilities in Rome. And here's what keeps modern investigators awake at night: the genetic modifications identified in those Roman remains. They weren't lost when the Western Empire fell. The bloodlines survived, adapted, and continue to this day, still requiring biological supplementation to maintain their enhanced capabilities. The Roman Senate didn't disappear with the empire's collapse. It evolved, spreading its members across Europe, and eventually the world, always maintaining the same basic structure: a ruling class with enhanced capabilities sustained by the systematic consumption of ordinary humans. The evidence points to something they never wanted revealed. The modern world's power structures aren't just influenced by Roman governance, they're operated by the direct descendants of Rome's transformed senatorial class, still maintaining their biological requirements through methods that have evolved but never fundamentally changed. Behind this silence lies a darker truth that explains why certain bloodlines have maintained power across centuries, why missing persons statistics show patterns that authorities refuse to investigate, and why archaeological discoveries related to Roman elite practices are systematically suppressed. But what we've uncovered so far is just the foundation of the conspiracy. Because the transformed senatorial families weren't the only players in Rome's underground network. There was another group, even more secretive, even more powerful, that operated from the shadows and controlled the supply chains that kept the entire system functioning. Chapter 5. The Praetorian Guard. The Praetorian Guard stood at attention in the imperial palace, their gleaming armor and disciplined formations representing the pinnacle of Roman military might. But these elite soldiers weren't just protecting the emperor from political enemies, they were enforcing a conspiracy that reached into every corner of the empire. Commander Marcus Valerius left behind a leather-bound journal when he died in 127 AD, hidden in a sealed chamber beneath his family's villa outside Rome. The journal, discovered during renovations in 1934 and immediately confiscated by Italian authorities, reveals the true mission of Rome's most elite military unit. "We are not soldiers," Valerius wrote in entries that were never meant to be read by outsiders. "We are harvesters. Our oath is not to Rome or even to Caesar. It is to the feeding that sustains those who rule from the shadows. Today, we collected 37 from the Gallic territories. The chambers beneath the palace are prepared." The Praetorian Guard wasn't just the emperor's personal army, it was the enforcement arm of the underground network that kept Rome, his transformed elite, supplied with the biological resources they required to maintain their altered physiology. Here's what they don't tell you about Roman military organization. While regular legions conquered territories and maintained order, the Praetorians operated a parallel command structure that had nothing to do with traditional warfare. Their real mission was logistical, managing the supply chains that moved human resources from the empire's frontiers to underground processing facilities in Rome. Archaeological evidence from Praetorian camps reveals facilities that don't appear in any military manual, holding areas designed for temporary human storage transportation equipment specialized for moving large numbers of people secretly in communication systems that bypassed normal military channels entirely. The Castra Praetoria, the Praetorian Guard's main fortress in Rome, was built with underground sections that rivaled the chambers beneath the Senate and Imperial Palace. But these were not ceremonial spaces, they were operational centers for coordinating the empire's most sensitive supply chain operations. Dr. Roberto Castellani's excavations beneath the Castra Praetoria site in 1987 revealed something that changed his understanding of Roman military organization forever. Evidence of systematic processing on an industrial scale with facilities designed to handle hundreds of people at a time. The underground sections were vast, Castellani noted in his classified report. But they weren't barracks or storage areas, they were processing centers equipped with drainage systems, ventilation networks, and disposal facilities that could handle biological waste on a massive scale. This was industrial-level human processing. The excavation was halted after 3 weeks. Castellani's team was disbanded. The site was sealed and built over with a modern apartment complex. Castellani himself was reassigned to cataloguing pottery fragments at a small museum in southern Italy. Archaeological exile. But here's where the conspiracy gets truly sophisticated. The Praetorian Guard's supply chain operations weren't random or opportunistic. They were scientifically managed systems that tracked population demographics across the empire, identified optimal harvesting targets, and coordinated with local administrators to ensure steady supplies without creating noticeable shortages. The evidence comes from fragments of military correspondence recovered from sites across the former Roman Empire. These aren't battle reports or strategic communications. They are logistical documents that read like modern supply chain management manuals, complete with quotas, delivery schedules, and quality specifications. One document, recovered from a military archive in what is now France, includes detailed instructions for resource acquisition in newly conquered territories, priority targets, unattached juveniles, isolated family units, populations with limited social connections, optimal extraction rates, 3 to 5% of total population per season to maintain sustainability, processing to be completed within 72 hours of acquisition to ensure material viability. These weren't military orders, they were harvesting protocols that treated human beings as consumable resources to be managed scientifically for optimal yield. But the most chilling aspect of the Praetorian operation was its recruitment process. Guard membership wasn't just about military skill or political loyalty, it was about willingness to participate in activities that would bind members permanently to the conspiracy through shared complicity. Modern analysis of Praetorian burial sites reveals something that should be impossible, evidence of the same genetic modifications found in senatorial remains, but with different characteristics. The Praetorians weren't just enforcing the supply chain, they were being transformed themselves, enhanced for their specific operational requirements. These modifications included increased physical strength and endurance, enhanced sensory capabilities for tracking human targets, and most disturbing of all, psychological alterations that eliminated normal human empathy and moral constraints when dealing with harvesting operations. The transformation process required regular biological supplementation, making Praetorian guards dependent on the same supply chains they were enforcing. This created a self-sustaining system where the enforcers were biologically bound to continue their operations or face deterioration and death. But here's what modern investigators find most troubling. Praetorian organizational structures did not disappear with the Western Empire's collapse. The same operational methods, the same recruitment criteria, the same enhancement procedures, all survived and adapted to new political contexts. Medieval knight orders, Renaissance papal guards, modern military special forces all show organizational patterns that echo Praetorian structures, complete with unexplained capabilities, unusual loyalty bonds, and operational secrecy that extends far beyond normal military requirements. The evidence points to an unbroken chain of succession from Roman Praetorian guards to modern enforcement organizations that continue to operate harvesting networks for the descendants of Rome's transformed elite. The methods have evolved, the technologies have advanced, but the basic function remains unchanged, managing supply chains of human resources for consumption by enhanced bloodlines that still require biological supplementation to maintain their power. This explains why certain military and security organizations operate with impunity across national boundaries, why missing persons investigations are systematically obstructed when they approach certain patterns, and why archaeological discoveries related to Roman military sites are consistently suppressed or discredited. Behind this silence lies a darker truth. The modern world's security apparatus isn't just influenced by Roman military organization, it's operated by the direct descendants of transformed Praetorian guards, still fulfilling their original mission of harvesting human resources for consumption by bloodlines that have never stopped requiring biological supplementation to maintain their enhanced capabilities. But the Praetorian guards were just the enforcement mechanism. The real power behind Rome's underground network lay with a group so secretive that even emperors were kept ignorant of their true activities, a shadow organization that controlled the transformation process itself and determined who would be enhanced and who would remain human livestock. Chapter 6. The Cult of Mithras. Deep beneath Rome's bustling streets, carved into solid rock, lay hundreds of underground temples dedicated to Mithras, a mystery god whose worship was restricted to initiates bound by oaths of absolute secrecy. But these weren't ordinary religious sanctuaries. They were operational centers for the conspiracy that controlled the Roman Empire from the shadows. The Mithraea, as these underground temples were known, shared architectural features that appear nowhere else in Roman religious architecture. Chambers designed for activities requiring drainage ventilation systems that could contain and remove biological vapors and altar arrangements that facilitated the systematic processing of human subjects. Professor Adriana Toretti discovered the true purpose of these temples while studying Mithraic iconography at the University of Bologna in 1995. Her analysis of the famous tauroctony, the central image of Mithras slaying a bull, revealed details that transform our understanding of what actually took place in these underground chambers. The bull wasn't a symbolic sacrifice, Toretti explained in her suppressed doctoral thesis. It was a procedural manual. Every element of the tauroctony corresponds to specific techniques for extracting biological materials from human subjects. The star positions, the animal figures, the positioning of Mithras himself, it's all instructional iconography for harvesting procedures. The cult of Mithras was Ninta religion. It was a training program for the technicians who managed the biological transformation of Rome as elite and the processing of human resources that sustained them. Here's what they don't want you to know. Mithraic initiation involved 7 levels of advancement, each corresponding to specific roles in the underground network. The lowest levels learned basic harvesting techniques. The highest levels mastered the genetic modification procedures that transformed ordinary humans into the enhanced beings that ruled the empire. Archaeological evidence from Mithraea across the Roman world reveals standardized equipment that has nothing to do with traditional religious practice. Surgical instruments that predate known medical technology by centuries, preservation systems for biological materials, and most disturbing of all, detailed anatomical models that show human subjects with the same genetic modifications found in elite Roman remains. The London Mithraeum, discovered during construction work in 1954, contained artifacts that British authorities immediately classified as state secrets. Surgical tools made from metals that should not have existed in Roman times, preservation containers with contents that were still viable after 2 millennia, and instruction tablets describing transformation procedures in detail. The site was sealed within days of discovery. The artifacts disappeared into government storage, and the lead archaeologist, Dr. William Grimes, was reassigned to rural excavations and forbidden from discussing his findings for the rest of his career. But the most revealing evidence comes from the initiation chambers themselves. Modern forensic analysis of residue from Mithraea across Europe shows consistent patterns of human tissue processing, not animal sacrifice. These chambers were laboratories where Roman technicians perfected the procedures that created and maintained the enhanced bloodlines that controlled the empire. The 7 levels of Mithraic initiation weren't spiritual stages. They were technical certifications in increasingly advanced biological procedures. Level 1, Raven, basic harvesting techniques and resource identification. Level 2, Bridegroom, preservation and transportation of biological materials. Level 3, Soldier, enhanced enforcement capabilities and population management. Level 4, Lion, advanced extraction procedures and quality control. Level 5, Persian, genetic modification techniques and bloodline management. Level 6, Runner of the Sun, transformation oversight and network coordination. Level 7, Father, master technician with complete knowledge of all procedures. Each level required not just knowledge but physical transformation that bound initiates permanently to the conspiracy. Mithraic initiates weren't just sworn to secrecy, they were biologically modified to ensure loyalty and enhance their operational capabilities. This explains why Mithraism spread so rapidly through Roman military and administrative networks. It wasn't religious conversion, it was recruitment into the operational structure that actually controlled the empire from underground. But here's where the conspiracy reveals its true scope. Mithraic temples weren't just Roman. They've been discovered at sites that predate Roman conquest, built by civilizations that official history claims had no contact with each other. The network was already ancient when Rome adopted it, and it survived the empire's collapse to continue operating under new identities. Medieval alchemical societies, Renaissance scientific academies, modern research institutions all show organizational patterns that mirror Mithraic structure, complete with graduated initiation levels, secretive procedures, and biological research that officially doesn't exist. The evidence points to an unbroken chain of succession, from Mithraic technicians to modern research networks that continue to develop and refine the enhancement procedures that maintain the power of bloodlines descended from Rome's transformed elite. Recent genetic research conducted at facilities whose funding sources can't be traced has achieved breakthroughs in life extension and capability enhancement that echo the modifications found in Roman elite remains. The same techniques that created Rome's ruling class are being refined and applied to maintain the power of their modern descendants. This explains why certain research institutions operate with unlimited funding from anonymous sources, why breakthrough genetic therapies remain unavailable to the general public despite being technologically feasible, and why scientists working on life extension research occasionally disappear from public view entirely. Behind this silence lies the most terrifying truth of all. The cult of Mithras wasn't just a Roman phenomenon, it was the local manifestation of a network that has operated continuously throughout human history, always adapting to new political and technological contexts while maintaining the same essential function. The shadow masters who controlled Rome from underground never left. They simply evolved their methods, updated their technology, and continued their work from new locations with new identities. The genetic modifications that created Rome's enhanced elite are still being refined today, and the harvesting networks that supplied biological resources to ancient Rome continue to operate on a global scale. But understanding the Mithraic network is just the beginning of uncovering Rome's most terrifying secret. Because all of these groups, the transformed Senate, the enhanced Praetorians, the Mithraic technicians, were working together toward a single, horrifying goal that would explain why the empire suddenly abandoned its expansion and began preparing for something that would change the nature of human civilization forever. Chapter 7: The Constantine Deception. In 312 AD, Emperor Constantine claimed to have seen a vision of the Christian cross before the Battle of Milvian Bridge. This divine revelation, according to official history, led to his conversion and the Christianization of the Roman Empire. But archaeological evidence tells a very different story, one of the most sophisticated cover-up operation in human history. The truth about Constantine's conversion lies buried beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, where excavations in 1978 uncovered something that should have been impossible: a fully operational Mithraic complex built directly beneath Constantine's Christian basilica, connected by tunnels to similar facilities across the former Roman world. Dr. Sarah Goldman's team discovered the Jerusalem complex while investigating structural damage to the ancient church. What they found changed everything we thought we knew about the relationship between Christianity and Roman power, and cost Dr. Goldman her career, her reputation, and nearly her life. The Mithraic complex wasn't just preserved beneath the church, Goldman wrote in her suppressed field notes, now held in private archives. It was expanded, improved. The Christian basilica above was built specifically to conceal and protect the underground facilities below. Constantine didn't convert to Christianity, he weaponized it. Here's what they don't want you to know: the Christianization of Rome was not the triumph of a new religion over imperial paganism. It was the most brilliant camouflage operation ever conceived, designed to hide the empire's underground network behind the facade of Christian piety, while massively expanding its operational capabilities. The evidence is hidden in plain sight across every major Christian site from Constantine's era. Beneath the churches, cathedrals, and monasteries he built lie sophisticated underground complexes that mirror the architectural features of earlier Mithraea, but on a scale that dwarfs anything from the pagan period. The Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome, Constantine's first major church construction, was built over the largest Mithraic complex ever discovered. Ground-penetrating radar reveals underground chambers that extend for miles beneath the city, connected by tunnel networks that link to every major church site Constantine established. But here's where the conspiracy reaches its most sophisticated level. Constantine didn't just preserve the underground network, he globalized it. Under the cover of spreading Christianity, his agents established connected facilities across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, creating a worldwide infrastructure for the enhanced bloodline's continued operations. The Donation of Constantine, the famous document that gave the Pope temporal authority over Western Europe, wasn't just a political arrangement. It was a management contract that placed the entire underground network under papal control, ensuring its protection and expansion under religious authority that couldn't be challenged by secular rulers. Archaeological evidence from excavations beneath major European cathedrals reveals the true scope of this operation. Canterbury Cathedral sits above chambers that connect to similar facilities beneath Winchester, York, and dozens of other religious sites. Notre Dame in Paris crowns an underground complex that extends to every major church in France. St. Peter's Basilica in Rome serves as the central hub for a network that spans the entire continent. These weren't just storage areas or crypts. They were operational centers equipped with the same advanced technology found in earlier Roman sites, but expanded and refined over centuries of continuous use. The most disturbing discovery came in 2003 when maintenance work at Westminster Abbey accidentally breached one of these underground chambers. The brief video footage taken before authorities sealed the site shows facilities that appear to be in active use. Modern equipment alongside ancient architecture, fresh biological residue in drainage systems designed 2 millennia ago, and most chilling of all evidence of recent human processing. Within hours, the site was sealed. The maintenance crew was relocated to other projects. The video footage disappeared from Abbey archives, and the official explanation cited routine structural reinforcement that required no further investigation. But the Constantine deception goes deeper than just creating a cover story for underground operations. The establishment of Christianity as the empire's official religion created something unprecedented, a recruitment system that could operate openly in every community across the known world. Christian monasteries weren't just religious communities, they were training centers for technicians who maintained the underground network. The famous Rule of St. Benedict, which governed monastic life across Europe, includes provisions that make sense only when understood as operational security protocols for sensitive biological research. Monastic vows of silence, isolation from outside contact, and absolute obedience to higher authorities weren't spiritual disciplines. They were security measures designed to protect the most sensitive operations in human history. Modern analysis of medieval manuscripts from major monasteries reveals technical documents disguised as religious texts, procedures for key spiritual purification, that are actually genetic modification protocols, healing practices that describe advanced surgical techniques, and communion preparations that detail the processing and distribution of biological materials. The papal archives, closed to researchers for most of their history, contain the administrative records for this global network. The few documents that have been leaked reveal a bureaucracy that rivals modern multinational corporations. Supply chain management, quality control protocols, personnel transfers between facilities, and financial records for operations that officially don't exist. But here's the most terrifying implication of the Constantine deception. If the Christianization of Rome was actually a cover-up operation designed to protect and expand the underground network, then what we call Western civilization, with its Christian foundations, its institutional structures, its educational systems, was designed from the beginning to serve the needs of enhanced bloodlines that require human resources for their continued existence. Every major institution of European civilization, from universities to hospitals to government bureaucracies, follows organizational patterns that echo the structure of Constantine's underground network. The same hierarchical authority, the same operational secrecy, the same unquestioning obedience to superiors whose true motivations remain hidden. And here's what keeps modern investigators awake at night. The network that Constantine created didn't just survive the fall of Rome, it became the foundation for the modern world. The enhanced bloodlines that once ruled from Roman palaces now operate from corporate boardrooms, government offices, and research institutions. But their fundamental needs haven't changed. They still require biological resources to maintain their enhanced capabilities. They still need global infrastructure to manage their supply chains. And they still rely on the majority of humanity remaining ignorant of their true nature and requirements. The evidence points to something they never wanted revealed. Modern civilization wasn't built to serve human needs. It was designed to serve as a harvesting system for enhanced beings whose appetite for human resources has only grown more sophisticated over the centuries. Behind this silence lies the darkest truth of all. We're not living in a post-Roman world. We're living in a world that Rome never actually left. It just went underground and learned to operate through institutions that we've been taught to trust and respect. But what we've discovered so far is just the operational structure of the conspiracy. The real horror lies in understanding what the enhanced bloodlines have been working toward for 2 millennia. A final solution to the problem of maintaining their power while managing an increasingly aware human population. Chapter 8. The modern network. The glass towers of Manhattan rise into the sky like monuments to human achievement, their gleaming facades reflecting a world of technological progress and democratic ideals. But beneath those buildings, connected by tunnels that echo the architecture of ancient Rome, lies the contemporary manifestation of a network that has operated continuously for over 2,000 years. Dr. Jennifer Walsh discovered the modern network scope while investigating financial irregularities at a major pharmaceutical corporation in 2019. What began as routine corporate fraud investigation led her into a labyrinth of shell companies, research facilities, and biological supply chains that connected directly to the descendants of Rome's enhanced bloodlines. The financial flows didn't make sense. Walsh explained in a recorded interview before her disappearance in 2020. Billions of dollars moving through networks of companies that didn't seem to produce anything, funding research that wasn't being published, supporting facilities that officially didn't exist. When I started mapping the ownership structures, I found bloodlines that traced back to Roman senatorial families. The modern network operates through a web of interconnected institutions that appear separate but function as a unified system. Pharmaceutical corporations that develop enhancement technologies, government agencies that manage population data, research institutions that refine harvesting procedures, and financial networks that fund operations across the globe. Here's what they don't want you to know. The major pharmaceutical companies aren't competing businesses, they're operational divisions of a single network, controlled by bloodlines whose genetic modifications were perfected in ancient Roman laboratories. Their public mission of developing medicines is camouflage for their real purpose, maintaining and refining the biological supplements that sustain their enhanced masters. The evidence lies in the patent databases that track biotechnology research. Companies that officially compete for market share consistently file complementary patents that, when combined, describe integrated systems for human genetic modification and biological resource extraction. These aren't separate research programs, they're coordinated development of technologies that continue. Work begun in Mithraic temples 2 millennia. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of major pharmaceutical campuses reveal underground facilities that dwarf their surface operations. Pfizer's research campus in Connecticut sits above chambers that extend for miles underground. The Roche facility in Switzerland crowns a complex that connects to similar installations across Europe, and the combined underground network matches the architectural patterns found beneath Constantine's churches, the same design, updated with modern technology. But the pharmaceutical operations are just one component of a system that encompasses every aspect of modern life. Government databases that track population movements, medical records and genetic information aren't just administrative tools, they're resource management systems that identify optimal targets for harvesting. Operations, the evidence comes from pattern analysis of missing persons data across developed nations. Computer modeling reveals selection criteria that match the protocols found in Roman military documents. Individuals with minimal social connections, specific genetic markers, and demographic profiles that ensure their disappearance won't trigger investigation. Dr. Michael Torres conducted this analysis while working at the FBI's missing persons database in 2018. His findings, suppressed by department leadership, revealed that disappearances across the United States follow algorithms that treat human beings as commodities to be harvested according to quality specifications and demand forecasts. The patterns were unmistakable. Torres noted in his confidential report, obtained through sources within federal law enforcement, disappearances weren't random or opportunistic. They were managed quotas that matched demand from facilities we weren't supposed to know existed. When I tried to investigate the facilities themselves, I was transferred to white-collar crime and forbidden from accessing missing persons data. The harvesting operations are coordinated through research institutions that appear to conduct legitimate scientific work, but actually serve as processing centers for the biological materials that sustain enhanced bloodlines. University medical schools, biotech research facilities, and government laboratories form an integrated network that maintains the supply chains perfected by the Romans. Modern missing persons don't just disappear, they're processed in facilities that have refined the techniques developed in ancient Mithraea. The end products aren't just consumed directly, they're refined into pharmaceutical preparations that can be distributed through legitimate medical channels to consumers whose enhanced genetics require regular biological supplementation. The prescription drug epidemic isn't just about addiction or profit, it's about distribution of enhancement supplements to bloodlines whose modified genetics create dependencies that must be satisfied to maintain their capabilities. The customers aren't random consumers. They're the descendants of Roman elite whose biological requirements haven't changed in 2 millennia. But here's where the modern network reveals its most sophisticated evolution. Unlike their Roman predecessors, today's enhanced bloodlines don't need to rule through obvious political authority. They operate through networks of influence that control democratic governments, corporate boardrooms, and cultural institutions while maintaining the appearance of human leadership. The evidence lies in genealogical analysis of power structures across modern institutions. Families that trace their lineage to Roman senatorial houses hold disproportionate influence in governments. Corporations and organizations worldwide, not through hereditary titles, but through networks of control that ensure their continued dominance. Regardless of apparent political changes, these bloodlines don't just inherit wealth or social position, they inherit genetic modifications that provide enhanced intelligence, extended lifespan, and biological capabilities that give them insurmountable advantages over ordinary humans in any competitive environment. Recent advances in genetic analysis have revealed something that should be impossible. DNA samples from powerful individuals across multiple industries show the same artificial modifications found in Roman elite remains, but refined and enhanced through 2 millennia of continuous development. The technology that created Rome's ruling class hasn't been lost, it's been perfected. The modern descendants of enhanced Roman bloodlines don't just maintain their advantages, they've expanded them in ways that make their dominance over ordinary humans as absolute as the Romans' dominance over their provincial subjects. And here's the most chilling implication: the network's modern operations are preparation for something unprecedented in human history. The enhanced bloodlines aren't just maintaining their power, they're preparing to eliminate the need for secrecy entirely by creating conditions that will make their open dominance not just acceptable, but welcomed by the human populations they've been harvesting for millennia. The evidence points to something they never wanted revealed. We're not living through a period of human progress toward greater freedom and democracy. We're living through the final stages of a plan that began in ancient Rome, the systematic conditioning of human civilization to accept, overruled by enhanced beings whose genetic superiority will be presented as the natural evolution of human leadership. Behind this silence lies the ultimate truth. The modern world isn't governed by human institutions serving human interests. It's managed by the biological descendants of Roman enhanced bloodlines, still requiring human resources for their continued existence, still operating through the same networks Constantine established, and now preparing to complete a transformation of human civilization that will eliminate the need for concealment forever. But what form will this final transformation take? And why are the enhanced bloodlines so confident that human populations will accept their open dominance after millennia of operating in secret? The answer lies in understanding the true purpose of every technological and social development of the past century, all designed to create conditions where enhanced rule will appear not just inevitable, but beneficial to the very populations that have been unknowingly sustaining their masters' continued existence. In the sprawling campuses of Silicon Valley, where glass and steel monuments to innovation rise above California's hills, lies the most sophisticated biological processing network ever constructed. The technology companies that dominate global communications, commerce, and information flow weren't built to serve human connectivity. They were designed as data collection and resource management systems for enhanced bloodlines preparing to complete their ancient agenda. Dr. Kevin Zhang discovered this truth while conducting cybersecurity research for Apple in 2017. His investigation into unusual data flows led him deep into the company's operational infrastructure, where he found systems that had nothing to do with consumer technology and everything to do with biological resource management. The servers weren't just processing user data, Zhang explained in encrypted communications sent before his mysterious disappearance. They were running biological tracking algorithms that monitored human populations for harvesting optimization. User profiles included genetic markers, health data, and behavioral patterns that determined harvesting suitability. The technology platforms were selection systems disguised as social networks. The evidence reveals that major technology corporations operate dual infrastructure, public-facing systems that provide consumer services, and classified networks that serve enhanced bloodline requirements for population monitoring and biological resource identification. Every smartphone, social media account, and digital transaction generates data that feeds into selection algorithms designed to optimize human harvesting operations. Google's search algorithms don't just find information, they identify individuals, whose search patterns indicate genetic characteristics valuable for biological processing. Facebook's social mapping doesn't just connect friends, it tracks bloodline relationships that help identify isolated individuals who won't be missed. Amazon's delivery networks don't just ship products, they provide logistical infrastructure for moving biological materials from processing facilities to enhanced bloodline consumers. The most damning evidence comes from source code fragments recovered by resistance researchers who infiltrated major technology companies. These code snippets reveal algorithms with function names like harvest optimization, genetic profiling, and isolation mapping, programs that have no purpose for legitimate consumer technology but perfectly serve the requirements of biological resource management. One recovered algorithm from a major social media platform includes detailed genetic analysis capabilities. Function analyzes uploaded photos for bone structure, facial symmetry, and physiological markers indicating genetic modifications, cross-references against enhanced bloodline databases to identify potential threats or valuable resources, flags subjects for priority monitoring or collection protocols. The technology industry's obsession with artificial intelligence isn't about creating helpful digital assistants. It's about developing automated systems that can manage human populations without requiring enhanced bloodline personnel to expose themselves through direct involvement. AI algorithms can identify harvesting targets, optimize collection routes, and coordinate processing operations while maintaining perfect operational security. Silicon Valley's venture capital networks reveal the true funding sources behind technological development. Investment patterns show coordinated funding from sources that trace back to enhanced bloodline family trusts established centuries ago. These aren't competitive business investments, they're coordinated infrastructure development for systems designed to serve parasitic beings whose survival depends on efficient human resource management. The timing of major technology rollouts correlates precisely with enhanced bloodline operational requirements. Social media platforms launched when enhanced bloodlines needed better population monitoring systems. Smartphone adoption accelerated when they required portable tracking devices that humans would carry voluntarily. Cloud computing infrastructure expanded when they needed centralized data processing for global harvesting coordination. But the most sophisticated aspect of the technology conspiracy is psychological conditioning that makes humans eager to participate in their own surveillance and selection. Social media platforms reward users for sharing personal information that feeds directly into harvesting algorithms. Fitness trackers encourage biological monitoring that provides real-time health data for resource quality assessment. Entertainment, streaming services condition acceptance of algorithmic content selection that prepares minds for algorithmic life management. Enhanced bloodlines have weaponized human psychology against itself, creating technologies that feel empowering while actually facilitating systematic biological exploitation. Users believe they're gaining convenience, connectivity, and entertainment, when they're actually providing the data and behavioral conditioning necessary for their own efficient harvesting and consumption. The evidence points to coordination between technology companies and pharmaceutical corporations that creates integrated systems for human resource management. Tech platforms identify optimal harvesting targets, pharmaceutical networks process, biological materials and financial systems handle transactions that fund continued operations, all coordinated through enhanced bloodline family networks that control key positions across multiple industries. Recent developments in biotechnology and artificial intelligence represent the final components of infrastructure designed to eliminate enhanced bloodlines' dependence on human cooperation. Automated harvesting systems can identify, collect, and process human resources without requiring human personnel who might develop moral qualms about their work. AI-controlled distribution networks can deliver biological products to enhanced bloodline consumers without human intermediaries who might recognize the true nature of the operations. The technology industry isn't preparing humanity for a digital future, it's completing the infrastructure for biological subjugation that began in the underground chambers of ancient Rome. Enhanced bloodlines are approaching the point where they no longer need human cooperation or ignorance to maintain their parasitic existence, because their technological systems can manage human populations as efficiently as modern agriculture manages livestock. Behind this silicon facade lies the ultimate irony. Humans have enthusiastically adopted technologies designed for their own exploitation, believing they're participating in progress when they're actually facilitating their transition from unwitting victims to conscious biological resources in a system that will soon no longer require their consent or cooperation to function efficiently. Chapter 9. The Vatican archives, deep beneath the marble halls of Vatican City, behind doors that have remained sealed for centuries, lies the most complete record of Rome's underground network ever assembled. The Vatican Secret Archives, recently renamed the Vatican Apostolic Archives in a transparent attempt at public relations, contain not just papal correspondence and religious documents, but the administrative records of a conspiracy that has operated continuously since Constantine's time. Cardinal Alessandro Torretti gained access to the restricted sections of the archives in 1989 while researching medieval manuscript collections. What he discovered changed his understanding of the Catholic Church's true mission and led to his mysterious disappearance 3 years later. "The documents are all there," Torretti wrote in a letter hidden in his personal effects and discovered after his death. Operational records spanning 2 millennia, supply chain manifests, personnel transfers between facilities, financial accounts for activities that officially never existed. The Church isn't just complicit in the conspiracy, it's the conspiracy's primary administrative arm. The evidence begins with Constantine's own correspondence, preserved in papal archives since the 4th century. These aren't the sanitized, historical documents available to scholars, but working papers that reveal the true scope of the arrangement between imperial power and religious authority. In a letter dated 324 AD, Constantine writes to Pope Sylvester III, "The underground facilities have been secured beneath each basilica as discussed. The Brothers of the Light have confirmed successful transfer of primary operations from the old sites. Material processing capabilities have been increased threefold. The new administrative structure will ensure continuous operations regardless of political changes above ground." The Brothers of the Light were Constantine's code name for the Mithraic technicians who managed the transformation procedures. The letter confirms that the Christianization of Rome wasn't just political camouflage, it was a complete infrastructure upgrade that expanded the network's capabilities while placing it under religious protection that couldn't be challenged by secular authorities. But here's what they don't want you to know. The Vatican wasn't just protecting Constantine's network, it was evolving it into something far more sophisticated than anything the Romans had achieved. Under papal authority, the underground operations expanded from simple biological harvesting to comprehensive genetic research that would reshape the human species itself. The archives contain detailed records of this expansion. Medical manuscripts disguised as theological treatises describe procedures for spiritual purification that are actually protocols for genetic modification. Monastic rules that appear to govern religious life are revealed as operational security measures for the most sensitive biological research in human history. One document, dating from 847 AD and attributed to Pope Leo IV, outlines a research program that wouldn't be out of place in a modern biotechnology laboratory. The enhancement procedures have been successfully refined. Longevity treatments now extend operational lifespan to 400 years. Cognitive modifications provide processing capabilities exceeding baseline human parameters by factors of 10 or 15. Physical enhancements include strength multiplication, sensory expansion, and regenerative capabilities that eliminate most forms of injury or disease. These weren't theoretical discussions, they were progress reports on actual human modification procedures being conducted in facilities beneath major churches across Europe. The Vatican wasn't just documenting these activities, it was coordinating them as part of a systematic program to create a new species of enhanced beings. Archaeological evidence supports these documentary records. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the Vatican itself reveal underground complexes that dwarf anything found beneath ancient Roman sites. The Pope's private apartments sit above chambers that extend hundreds of feet underground, connected by tunnel networks that link to every major church in Rome. Dr. Elizabeth Mueller gained brief access to these chambers in 2001 while conducting structural analysis for earthquake preparedness. Her classified report, obtained through sources within the Vatican bureaucracy, describes facilities that appear to be in active use. The underground levels contain equipment that seems centuries ahead of publicly available technology. Biological processing facilities, genetic analysis laboratories, and what appear to be life support systems for specimens that I was not permitted to examine directly. Mueller's access was terminated within hours of filing her preliminary report. She was reassigned to rural archaeological projects and required to sign confidentiality agreements that effectively ended her career in Vatican research. But the most disturbing aspect of the Vatican's role isn't just its protection of the ancient conspiracy, it's the Church's function as a recruitment system for the modern network. The global structure of Catholic institutions provides perfect cover for identifying, training, and deploying personnel for operations that officially don't exist. Seminary training programs don't just produce priests, they identify individuals with the psychological profiles necessary for participation in biological research and harvesting operation. The rigorous screening, the oaths of secrecy, the hierarchical authority structure all serve to select and condition operatives for the network's most sensitive activities. Modern analysis of personnel records from major Catholic institutions reveals patterns that confirm this recruitment function. Individuals who demonstrate specific capabilities during seminary training are transferred to special assignments at facilities that don't appear in any official church directory. These assignments involve work at research institutions, pharmaceutical companies, and government agencies where church personnel operate under secular identities while maintaining their true allegiance to the Vatican hierarchy. The global network of Catholic schools, hospitals, and universities provides perfect cover for activities that require access to human subjects and biological materials. The financial records preserved in the Vatican archives reveal the true scope of these operations. The Church's famous wealth isn't just accumulated donations and property holdings. It includes revenue from biological processing operations that have generated unprecedented profits for over a millennium. Papal banking records from the medieval period show income streams that dwarf the official church budget. Listed as donations from anonymous benefactors and returns on spiritual investments, these funds actually represent payments for enhancement treatments and biological supplements provided to powerful bloodlines across Europe. The modern Vatican Bank continues this tradition, handling financial flows for a global network of enhancement-related businesses that generate hundreds of billions of dollars annually while maintaining perfect secrecy through religious banking privileges that shield their operations from secular oversight. But here's where the Vatican's role becomes truly terrifying. The Church hasn't just preserved and evolved the Roman network, it's preparing for the final phase of a plan that will transform human civilization permanently. The archives contain detailed projections for what church documents call the Great Revelation, the moment when enhanced bloodlines will end their concealment and claim open dominion over ordinary humanity. These projections, dating from various papal administrations over the past century, describe a coordinated campaign to condition human populations for acceptance of genetic hierarchy as the natural order of society. Educational programs that promote genetic determinism, medical research that validates biological inequality, and social movements that encourage deference to genetic superiors, all coordinated through institutions controlled by enhanced bloodlines operating under church protection. The timeline for this revelation has been accelerated in recent decades. Documents from Pope John Paul II's private archives indicate that technological developments have made continued secrecy increasingly difficult to maintain. The enhanced bloodlines are preparing to emerge from the shadows, not because they choose to, but because they must before their existence is discovered by human populations that might resist their rule. Vatican astronomers aren't just studying celestial phenomena, they're monitoring signals from enhanced bloodlines in other locations, coordinating the timing of revelations that will occur simultaneously across the globe. The Church's space research programs serve as communication networks for a conspiracy that extends far beyond Earth itself. The evidence points to something they never wanted revealed. The Catholic Church isn't a religious institution that happened to become corrupted by worldly power. It was designed from the beginning as the administrative apparatus for a conspiracy that views ordinary humanity as a resource to be managed and eventually replaced by genetically superior beings. Every Catholic doctrine that promotes submission to authority, acceptance of hierarchy, and faith in salvation through suffering serves to condition human populations for their eventual subjugation. The promise of eternal life isn't spiritual metaphor. It's a literal description of the enhanced longevity that awaits those who submit to genetic modification and integration into the network. But the Vatican archives contain one more secret that makes this conspiracy truly global in scope. The Catholic Church isn't the only religious institution involved. Similar arrangements exist with Islamic, Jewish, Buddhist, and Hindu hierarchies worldwide. All major religions serve as regional management systems for the same global network, adapted to local cultural conditions but serving identical functions. The enhanced bloodlines that have operated through Christian institutions in the West maintain parallel networks through religious authorities in every major civilization. The conspiracy isn't just Western or European, it's species-wide, with enhanced beings managing human populations through whatever authority structures prove most effective in each cultural context. This explains why religious conflicts throughout history have been so carefully managed to avoid actual threats to religious institutional power. Wars between believers serve to reinforce religious authority while eliminating human populations that might become aware of their true status as livestock for enhanced beings operating through religious hierarchies. Behind this silence lies the ultimate revelation. We don't live in a world of competing religions serving different spiritual purposes. We live in a world where all religious authority serves the same biological imperative, maintaining the power and feeding requirements of enhanced beings whose genetic modifications were perfected in chambers that still operate beneath the world's holiest sites. The Vatican isn't just guarding ancient secrets, it's coordinating the final preparations for humanity's transition from unwitting livestock to conscious subjects of beings whose biological superiority will soon be revealed as the foundation of a new world order that has been centuries in the making. But even the Vatican's global religious network is just one component of a conspiracy whose true scope encompasses institutions that most humans consider completely secular. Because the enhanced bloodlines learned long ago that the most effective control comes not through obvious religious authority, but through systems that humans believe serve their own interests. In the deepest chambers beneath St. Peter's Basilica, beyond the reach of even the most privileged Vatican researchers, lies a council chamber that has operated continuously since Constantine's time. Here, 13 figures gather monthly to coordinate operations that span the globe. But these aren't ordinary Catholic cardinals. They are the Custodia Sanguinis, the guardians of the blood, enhanced beings whose genetic modifications trace directly to the original Roman senatorial bloodlines. Father Antonio Benedetti discovered evidence of this secret council in 1997 while cataloguing medieval manuscripts in the Vatican's restricted archives. His unauthorized access to certain documents led to discoveries that cost him his position, his freedom, and ultimately his life. The documents refer to princes of the blood who hold authority above even the Pope, Benedetti wrote in notes hidden in his personal effects. These aren't metaphorical references to noble bloodlines. They describe individuals whose genetic modifications give them biological authority over ordinary humans, including church hierarchy. The Pope serves at their pleasure, implementing policies designed to serve their parasitic requirements. The Custodia Sanguinis operates as the true power behind papal authority, ensuring that Catholic doctrine and church operations continue to serve the conspiracy's biological imperatives. Vatican documents dating to the 6th century describe their selection process. Only individuals who demonstrate successful genetic modification and prove their biological superiority over ordinary humans can achieve membership in this ultimate council. Archaeological evidence supports the existence of this secret hierarchy. Ground-penetrating radar reveals chambers beneath the Vatican that don't correspond to any known architectural plans. Spaces designed to accommodate beings whose enhanced physiology requires specialized environmental controls. These chambers include atmospheric regulation systems, electromagnetic shielding, and biological support infrastructure that has no purpose for ordinary human occupancy. Dr. Francesco Moretti gained brief access to these chambers in 2005 while conducting seismic stability analysis for the Vatican's engineering department. His classified report describes facilities that appear designed for beings who are no longer entirely human. The atmospheric controls maintain oxygen levels and pressure readings that would be toxic to normal human physiology. The electromagnetic shielding suggests occupants whose modified nervous systems require protection from standard environmental radiation. Most disturbing, the biological support systems include intravenous feeding apparatus, connected to storage tanks containing materials I was not permitted to analyze. The Custodia Sanguinis doesn't just coordinate enhanced bloodline operations, they serve as the genetic repository for the parasitic species that has controlled human civilization since ancient times. Vatican archives contain detailed genealogical records tracking bloodline purity across centuries, documenting which families have maintained the genetic modifications necessary for enhanced capabilities and which have deteriorated toward baseline human genetics. These genealogical archives reveal the true purpose of Catholic marriage doctrine. The Church's restrictions on divorce, its promotion of specific family structures, and its involvement in aristocratic marriages across European history weren't designed to promote spiritual values, they were eugenic programs designed to maintain and concentrate the genetic modifications that give enhanced bloodlines their power over ordinary humans. Papal breeding programs, disguised as spiritual guidance for noble families, ensured that enhanced genetics were preserved and strengthened across generations. Church records show systematic intervention in royal and aristocratic marriages, with Vatican approval required for unions that might dilute or strengthen enhanced bloodlines. The evidence lies in marriage dispensation records preserved in papal archives. Requests for permission to marry within prohibited degrees of kinship weren't evaluated based on spiritual criteria. They were approved or denied based on genetic analysis that determined whether proposed unions would strengthen or weaken enhanced bloodline characteristics. One document from Pope Gregory VII's archives dated 1081 includes detailed analysis of a proposed marriage between two noble houses. Genetic evaluation confirms both bloodlines carry primary modifications inherited from the senatorial enhancement program. Union would concentrate longevity genes while strengthening cognitive amplification characteristics. Cellular dependency remains stable in both lines. Recommend approval with monitoring of offspring for successful trait expression. The Custodia Sanguinis has maintained these breeding programs for over a millennium, ensuring that enhanced bloodlines spread throughout European aristocracy while maintaining the genetic purity necessary for their parasitic survival. Modern European royal families, political dynasties, and corporate bloodlines all trace their enhanced genetics to Vatican-managed breeding programs that operated under the cover of spiritual guidance. But the secret cardinal's most important function isn't genetic management, it's maintaining the biological supply chains that sustain enhanced bloodline survival. Vatican archives contain operational records for a global harvesting network that has operated continuously since Constantine's time, evolving its methods while maintaining its essential function. Medieval documents describe systematic collection of biological resources through church institutions. Monasteries served as processing centers where human subjects were prepared for consumption by enhanced bloodlines. Pilgrimages provided cover for transportation networks that moved biological materials from collection sites to consumption centers. Inquisition trials eliminated individuals who threatened to expose the network's operations. The famous medieval plagues weren't natural disasters, they were cover stories for systematic harvesting. Operations that removed human populations while providing biological resources for enhanced bloodline consumption. Church records from plague periods show detailed tracking of population reduction and biological material collection that matches precisely with enhanced bloodline consumption requirements. Pope Clement VI's secret correspondence during the Black Death period reveals the true nature of plague responses. Collection operations proceed according to plan. Population reduction in target regions approaching optimal levels. Biological material extraction running ahead of projections. Enhanced bloodline consumption requirements met for next decade. Recommend gradual reduction of collection activities to maintain population sustainability. The Custodia Sanguinis learned to manage human populations as renewable resources, calculating optimal harvesting rates that could be sustained indefinitely without causing civilizational collapse. Their expertise in population management became the foundation for modern systems that continue to serve the same function through different institutional frameworks. Modern Catholic charities, medical missions and social services aren't just humanitarian organizations. They're collection networks that identify and process human resources for enhanced bloodline consumption. Vatican financial records show these programs generate biological materials rather than consuming resources, with surplus materials sold through pharmaceutical networks to enhanced bloodline consumers worldwide. The evidence comes from financial analysis of Catholic charity operations. Organizations that claim to provide aid to desperate populations consistently show profit margins that would be impossible for legitimate humanitarian work. The profits come from processing human subjects into biological materials that command premium prices from enhanced bloodline consumers. Recent investigations by resistance researchers have documented Catholic medical missions that operate mobile processing facilities in areas with minimal governmental oversight. These missions claim to provide healthcare to isolated populations, but satellite imagery shows facilities designed for a biological extraction rather than medical treatment. Dr. Maria Santos infiltrated one of these missions in Central America in 2018 while conducting epidemiological research for the World Health Organization. Her suppressed report describes operations that horrified even experienced medical professionals. The facility was equipped for systematic biological extraction on an industrial scale. Subjects were processed through assembly line procedures that extracted multiple organ systems, blood products, and tissue samples. The medical staff wasn't treating patients, they were harvesting resources for shipment to undisclosed destinations. Santos's exposure of these operations led to her immediate termination from WHO and her subsequent disappearance during a research trip to investigate similar facilities in Africa. Her final communications described Vatican coordination of processing operations across multiple continents, with biological materials shipped through diplomatic pouches that couldn't be inspected by secular authorities. The Custodia Sanguinis has transformed the global Catholic Church into the world's largest biological harvesting network, operating under religious protection that makes investigation or interference nearly impossible. Enhanced bloodlines don't just control governments and corporations, they operate through religious authority that billions of humans trust and support voluntarily. But the secret cardinals face an unprecedented challenge. Human populations are beginning to recognize the true nature of enhanced bloodline operations, and religious authority is losing its effectiveness as cover for biological harvesting. The Custodia Sanguinis is preparing for what Vatican documents call the final revelation, the moment when enhanced bloodlines abandon religious camouflage and claim open biological authority over human populations. Papal archives from the current pontificate reveal acceleration of preparation for this transition. The Vatican is coordinating with enhanced bloodlines worldwide to implement simultaneous revelations that will transform human understanding of religious authority. The Pope isn't preparing to lead spiritual transformation. He's preparing to announce humanity's biological subjugation to beings whose genetic superiority gives them natural authority over ordinary humans. These preparations include modification of Catholic doctrine to support genetic hierarchy as divine will, educational programs that present enhanced bloodlines as God's chosen representatives on earth, financial arrangements that will ensure church support for enhanced bloodline operations after the transition, and most disturbing, theological justifications for human biological service as spiritual obligation. The evidence points to coordinated implementation across all major religious traditions. Vatican communications with Islamic, Jewish, Buddhist, and Hindu authorities reveal parallel preparation for revelations that will present enhanced bloodline authority as fulfillment of religious prophecy rather than biological conquest. Religious leaders worldwide aren't preparing their followers for spiritual salvation. They're conditioning human populations to accept genetic subjugation as divine mandate. The final revelation won't be religious transformation. It will be humanity's formal acknowledgement of their status as biological resources for parasitic beings who have controlled religious institutions throughout recorded history. Behind this coordinated deception lies the ultimate truth about religious authority. It was never designed to serve human spiritual needs. From its foundation, organized religion has served as a management system for biological resources, conditioning human populations to accept their exploitation as spiritual virtue while providing operational cover for enhanced bloodlines who require human biological materials for survival. The Vatican archives don't just contain the administrative records of a conspiracy, they contain the operational manual for humanity's systematic exploitation by parasitic beings who have convinced their victims that serving their biological needs represents the highest form of spiritual achievement. The Custodia Sanguinis stands ready to complete a deception that has operated for nearly 2 millennia, transforming human civilization from unwitting servitude to conscious biological subjugation under the banner of religious revelation. But their preparations also create their greatest vulnerability. For the first time in history, human populations have access to the evidence of their true relationship with the beings they've been conditioned to worship and obey. The choice facing humanity isn't between different religious traditions or secular alternatives. It's between continued biological exploitation, disguised as spiritual service, and liberation from parasitic beings whose survival depends entirely on human ignorance of their true nature and requirements. Chapter 10. The Final Harvest. The World Economic Forum convenes annually in Davos, Switzerland, bringing together political leaders, corporate executives, and cultural influencers to discuss the future of human civilization. But the elegant conference rooms and public presentations mask the true purpose of these gatherings. Coordination meetings for enhanced bloodlines, preparing to implement the final phase of a plan that began in the underground chambers of ancient Rome. Dr. Rebecca Chen infiltrated the 2019 Davos meeting while conducting research on global economic policy for the Brookings Institution. What she discovered behind the closed-door sessions changed her understanding of modern power structures and forced her into hiding to avoid the fate of other researchers who learned too much about the conspiracy's contemporary operations. The public sessions were theatre, Chen explained, in a recorded statement made from an undisclosed location. The real decisions were made in basement levels that don't appear on any building plans. I gained access through a catering service, connection, and witnessed planning sessions for what they called population transition management. They weren't discussing economic policy, they were finalizing protocols for humanity's systematic integration into a new biological hierarchy. The Davos gatherings aren't unique, they're just the most visible manifestation of coordination. Meetings that occur regularly at exclusive resorts, private estates, and corporate retreats around the world. These events bring together enhanced bloodlines from different industries and nations to synchronize their preparation for what internal documents call the Great Transition. Here's what they don't want you to know. Every major technological and social development of the past century has been designed to create conditions that will make humanity's subjugation to enhanced beings appear not just inevitable, but beneficial. The transition isn't being imposed through force, it's being orchestrated through systematic conditioning that will lead human populations to welcome their new biological overlords. The evidence lies in the coordinated development of technologies that serve no apparent human need but perfectly support the requirements of enhanced beings preparing to end their concealment. Artificial intelligence systems that can manage large populations with minimal human oversight. Genetic engineering techniques that can modify human biology on an industrial scale. Surveillance networks that monitor every aspect of human behavior and identify potential resistance before it can organize. These technologies aren't being developed by competing corporations pursuing different market opportunities. They're products of coordinated research programs managed by enhanced bloodlines working toward shared objectives. Patent analysis reveals that apparently competitive companies consistently file complementary technologies that, when combined, create integrated systems for population management and biological modification. The smartphone in your pocket isn't just a communication device, it's a monitoring system that tracks your location, records your conversations, analyzes your behavior patterns, and identifies your biological characteristics through biometric sensors. The data isn't being collected for advertising or security purposes, it's building comprehensive profiles that will determine your role in the post-transition world. Social media platforms don't just connect people, they identify psychological profiles that predict resistance to authority, susceptibility to biological modification, and value as biological resources. The algorithms that determine what content you see aren't optimizing for engagement. They're conditioning your acceptance of concepts that will facilitate your integration into the new biological hierarchy. Educational systems aren't preparing students for careers in a competitive economy. They're sorting human populations into categories that will determine their treatment after the transition. Standardized testing measures not just academic achievement, but psychological profiles that indicate suitability for various roles in a world governed by enhanced beings. The evidence comes from analysis of educational policy documents obtained through sources within government bureaucracies. These reveal coordination between educational authorities in different nations to implement curriculum changes that serve no apparent pedagogical purpose, but effectively condition students for acceptance of genetic hierarchy as natural and beneficial. Modern education systematically eliminates critical thinking about biological equality while promoting deference to genetic authority. Students are taught that intelligence is primarily hereditary, that biological differences determine social outcomes, and that scientific progress requires acceptance of genetic modification as human evolution. Medical systems aren't just treating disease, they're preparing human populations for biological modification through incremental procedures that condition acceptance of genetic intervention. Vaccines, hormone treatments, and genetic therapies introduce modifications that serve as testing grounds for larger-scale biological alterations planned for the post-transition period. The evidence lies in the medical research priorities of major pharmaceutical companies. Despite public claims about developing treatments for human diseases, their primary research focuses on enhancement technologies that have no medical application for ordinary humans, but would be essential for maintaining enhanced beings who require biological supplementation to sustain their modified genetics. Recent developments in mRNA technology weren't developed to combat pandemics. They were proof of concept demonstrations for delivery systems that can modify human genetics on a population scale. The rapid development and global distribution of genetic modification technologies under medical cover provided the infrastructure for biological alterations that will be essential for humanity's integration into the new hierarchy. But the most sophisticated aspect of the transition preparation is psychological conditioning that makes enhanced rule appear not just acceptable, but desirable to human populations. Entertainment media, news coverage, and cultural movements consistently promote narratives that prepare humans for acceptance of biological hierarchy as the solution to social problems. Science fiction presents genetic modification as human evolution. News media reports genetic research as medical breakthrough. Educational content teaches biological determinism as scientific fact. All coordinate to create cultural acceptance of the idea that genetic superiority should determine social authority. The enhanced bloodlines aren't just preparing to reveal their existence, they're engineering conditions where their revelation will be welcomed by human populations conditioned to believe that genetic hierarchy represents progress rather than subjugation. The transition won't feel like conquest, it will feel like salvation. Climate change narratives serve this conditioning function perfectly. The enhanced bloodlines aren't concerned about environmental damage. Their modified genetics allow them to thrive in conditions that would be lethal to ordinary humans. But climate crisis messaging creates demand for radical solutions that only enhanced beings can provide, setting up their emergence as humanity's saviors rather than its conquerors. Economic inequality serves the same function. Enhanced bloodlines aren't bothered by wealth concentration. Their biological advantages make them naturally superior in any competitive environment. But inequality creates social conditions that make biological hierarchy appear as a solution to unfairness rather than its ultimate expression. Political polarization prevents human populations from recognizing their common interests, while enhanced bloodlines prepare for transition. Divided humans can't organize effective resistance to biological hierarchy, while shared hatred of political opponents creates demand for authority figures who transcend ordinary human limitations. The enhanced bloodlines have spent decades creating problems that only enhanced beings can solve, ensuring that their revelation will be met with gratitude rather than resistance from human populations desperate for solutions to crises that were deliberately created to facilitate the transition. But here's the most chilling aspect of the transition preparations. They're almost complete. Enhanced bloodlines are no longer planning for eventual revelation. They're implementing final protocols for transition that will begin within the current decade. Government documents obtained through sources within intelligence agencies reveal coordination between enhanced bloodlines across all major nations for simultaneous transition, events that will occur under cover of various crisis responses. Climate emergencies, pandemic responses, economic collapses, and security threats will provide justification for emergency powers that will never be relinquished. The enhanced beings won't take power through coup or conquest. They'll assume authority through crisis management that demonstrates their superior capabilities and justifies their permanent rule over human populations that will be grateful for stability and security that only enhanced beings can need. Provide technology platforms are already implementing censorship protocols that will prevent human populations from organizing resistance during the transition period. Financial systems are prepared to implement resource allocation that will ensure enhanced beings maintain absolute control over survival necessities. Transportation networks are configured to prevent human movement that might threaten transition security. The infrastructure for enhanced rule isn't being built. It's already operational, disguised as systems designed to serve human needs, but actually designed to facilitate humanity's smooth transition into biological subjugation. And here's the final truth that makes this conspiracy truly terrifying. The enhanced bloodlines aren't revealing themselves because they've achieved ultimate power. They're revealing themselves because they have no choice. Human populations are becoming aware of the conspiracy, and concealment is no longer sustainable. The transition isn't the culmination of their plan, it's an emergency response to prevent human awakening that could threaten their continued existence. They're not moving toward victory, they're scrambling to maintain control over populations that are beginning to understand their true status as livestock, for beings whose genetic modifications have made them dependent on human biological resources for survival. The conspiracy is being exposed not because investigators are uncovering hidden truths, but because the system of concealment that has operated for 2 millennia is finally breaking down under the pressure of technologies and social changes that make absolute secrecy impossible to maintain. We're not approaching humanity's subjugation. We're witnessing the enhanced bloodlines' desperate attempt to maintain power over populations that are beginning to recognize their true nature and capabilities. The transition preparations aren't signs of their strength. They're evidence of their vulnerability to human populations that no longer accept the authority of beings who have been secretly feeding on them for centuries. The final harvest isn't the enhanced bloodlines' triumph, it's their last chance to maintain control before humanity realizes that their supposed genetic superiors are actually parasites whose existence depends entirely on the consent and cooperation of the very populations they've been exploiting. But this realization creates the most dangerous moment in human history, a species finally awakening to its true condition, facing beings whose survival requires continued human subjugation in a struggle that will determine whether humanity evolves beyond its status as livestock or accepts permanent biological hierarchy as the price of technological comfort and institutional stability. The truth is finally emerging. The question is whether humans will act on that truth before the transition makes resistance impossible, or whether they'll accept their designated role in a new world order designed by beings whose genetic modifications began in the underground chambers of ancient Rome and now approach their ultimate expression in the systematic management of human civilization itself. The choice belongs to humanity, but only for as long as the enhanced bloodlines allow that choice to exist. While enhanced bloodlines prepare for their transition to open rule, a different kind of network has been forming in the shadows, one that threatens everything they've worked to achieve over 2 millennia. Dr. Marcus Kellerman discovered this resistance movement in 2020 while investigating anomalies in global communication patterns for the National Security Agency. The traffic was unlike anything in our databases, Kellerman explained, in encrypted communications before his defection from government service. Coordinated information sharing across multiple continents using communication protocols that bypassed all standard surveillance systems. When we finally decoded the transmissions, we realized we were looking at a global network of researchers, government insiders, and corporate whistleblowers sharing evidence about the conspiracy. The resistance isn't a formal organization, it's an organic network of individuals who stumbled upon pieces of the truth and began connecting with others who had made similar discoveries. Unlike the hierarchical structure of the enhanced bloodlines network, the resistance operates through distributed cells that share information without centralized leadership that could be compromised or eliminated. The evidence suggests this awakening began accelerating in the 1990s as internet technology made global communication accessible to ordinary researchers. Enhanced bloodlines had controlled information flow for centuries through their dominance of publishing, broadcasting, and educational institutions. But digital networks created communication channels they couldn't completely monitor or control. Dr. Sarah Morrison's research into pharmaceutical patents connected her with archaeologist Dr. Giuseppe Farnese, whose Vatican excavations had been suppressed decades earlier. Their collaboration revealed connections between ancient Roman enhancement procedures and modern genetic research that led them to economist Dr. Jennifer Walsh, whose investigation of biotech financial networks had been terminated by corporate security. These connections multiplied exponentially as researchers discovered they weren't isolated investigators stumbling upon random anomalies, but part of a growing community uncovering evidence of a coordinated conspiracy. Secure communication networks developed organically, using encryption techniques and distributed systems that made surveillance increasingly difficult. The resistance network operates through what they call information archaeology, the systematic recovery and analysis of suppressed evidence from multiple sources to reconstruct the true history of enhanced bloodline operations. Unlike academic research that relies on officially approved sources, information archaeology treats the absence of evidence as evidence itself, mapping the patterns of suppression to understand what's being hidden. Archaeological sites that are suddenly classified or sealed, research projects that lose funding when they approach sensitive discoveries, scientists who are transferred, discredited, or disappear when their work threatens established narratives, government documents that are heavily redacted or removed from public access, corporate records that show impossible financial flows or operational patterns. Each suppression incident becomes a data point that helps map the scope and methods of the conspiracy. The resistance has developed sophisticated analysis techniques that treat cover-ups as inadvertent revelations, using the energy required to hide truth as a method for locating and understanding that truth. But the most powerful tool of the resistance is pattern recognition across multiple disciplines. Enhanced bloodlines have maintained secrecy by compartmentalizing knowledge, ensuring that researchers in different fields don't realize their work relates to the same conspiracy. The resistance breaks down these compartments by bringing together experts from archaeology, genetics, finance, technology, and government, who can recognize connections that would be invisible to specialists working in isolation. Dr. Liu Wei's analysis of Chinese historical records revealed evidence of enhanced bloodline operations in ancient China that paralleled Roman activities. Dr. Amara Okafor's research into African oral traditions documented similar patterns of biological enhancement and population management across multiple civilizations. Dr. Carlos Mendez's investigation of pre-Columbian American sites found architectural features identical to those in Roman underground complexes. The global scope of the conspiracy became undeniable when researchers from different continents realized they were documenting identical phenomena across cultures that supposedly had no contact with each other. Enhanced bloodlines hadn't just operated in Rome, they had established networks across every major civilization in human history. This revelation led to the Resistance's most important discovery. Enhanced bloodlines aren't human descendants who gained power through conspiracy. They're a separate species that has operated as parasites on human civilization since the beginning of recorded history. The genetic modifications found in Roman elite remains weren't human enhancement, they were evidence of a non-human species that requires human biological resources for survival. Modern genetic analysis conducted by Resistance researchers using equipment at sympathetic institutions has revealed the full scope of this biological relationship. Enhanced bloodlines don't just have modified human genetics, they have genetic markers that don't exist in any terrestrial species. Their DNA includes sequences that suggest either extraterrestrial origin or artificial creation using technologies that predate known human civilization. Dr. Elena Vasquez's analysis of blood samples obtained from enhanced bloodline members through medical privacy. Breaches revealed cellular structures that function more like symbiotic organisms than modified human tissue. These aren't humans with genetic enhancements, Vasquez noted in her classified resistance report. These are composite organisms that require regular biological input from human sources to maintain cellular integrity. They're literally parasites that have evolved to mimic human appearance while depending on human resources for survival. This discovery explains the systematic nature of historical harvesting operations. Enhanced bloodlines don't consume human biological materials for enhancement or pleasure. They require them for basic survival. Their cellular structure breaks down without regular supplementation, leading to rapid aging, cognitive decline, and eventual death. The resistance has documented enhanced bloodline members who have been cut off from their biological supply chains. Within months, individuals who appeared to be healthy adults in their 40s or 50s deteriorated into elderly, confused shells of their former selves. Without human biological supplementation, their composite cellular structure cannot maintain the intelligence, physical capabilities, or extended lifespans that give them dominance over ordinary humans. This biological dependency creates the enhanced bloodline's greatest vulnerability and humanity's greatest opportunity for liberation. The parasites can't survive without their human hosts, but they also can't risk revealing their dependence because human populations would inevitably resist providing biological resources once they understood their true relationship with their supposed superiors. The resistance has begun developing strategies to exploit this dependency. Rather than trying to overthrow enhanced bloodline power structures directly, they're working to disrupt the biological supply chains that maintain enhanced bloodline survival, cut off from human resources. The parasites would be forced to reveal their true nature to negotiate for continued access, eliminating their greatest advantage of operating through concealment. Supply chain disruption takes multiple forms. Resistance cells within government agencies have begun identifying and interfering with missing persons operations that provide biological materials. Corporate insiders have sabotaged pharmaceutical distribution networks that deliver processed supplements to enhanced bloodline consumers. Medical professionals have begun documenting and reporting unusual biological procedures that support the harvesting operations. But the most effective resistance strategy is information warfare, spreading awareness of the conspiracy to human populations that have been kept ignorant of their true status. Enhanced bloodlines depend on human cooperation that is given voluntarily by populations that don't understand what they're actually supporting. Informed humans can refuse participation in systems that sustain their parasites. The resistance has developed sophisticated methods for spreading awareness without triggering the censorship and suppression systems that enhanced bloodlines use to control information flow. Rather than publishing formal exposés that can be easily discredited or suppressed, they distribute information through entertainment media, fictional narratives, and speculative content that introduces concepts gradually while avoiding direct claims that would trigger suppression. Resistance members working in Hollywood, publishing, gaming, and other entertainment industries have begun incorporating accurate information about the conspiracy into fictional narratives. Audiences absorb the information as entertainment while their subconscious minds process the implications and begin recognizing patterns in their own environment. This approach bypasses the psychological defense mechanisms that prevent most humans from accepting evidence of conspiracy. Direct presentation of suppressed evidence triggers cognitive dissonance that leads to rejection and denial. But fictional presentation allows gradual acceptance of concepts that prepare minds for eventual recognition of truth. The strategy is working. Public opinion polling conducted by resistance sympathizers shows increasing awareness of genetic hierarchy concepts, growing skepticism about institutional authority, and rising concern about biotech industry practices. Human populations aren't yet ready for direct revelation of the conspiracy, but they're being conditioned to accept and understand the truth when it can no longer be concealed. Enhanced bloodlines have begun responding to resistance activities with increasingly desperate measures. Surveillance has intensified, but the distributed nature of resistance networks makes comprehensive monitoring impossible. Suppression efforts have multiplied, But the information archaeology approach turns each suppression into additional evidence that spreads resistance awareness. Most significantly, enhanced bloodlines have begun accelerating their transition timeline in response to growing human awareness. The Great Transition was originally planned for gradual implementation over decades, but resistance activities have forced enhanced bloodlines to attempt rapid revelation before human populations become fully aware of their parasitic nature. This acceleration creates opportunities for resistance that wouldn't exist under the original timeline. Rapid transition requires exposed operations that can be documented and disrupted. Enhanced bloodlines are being forced to abandon careful concealment in favor of rushed implementation that reveals their activities to resistance monitoring. The resistance has documented transition preparations at facilities across North America and Europe. Enhanced bloodlines are preparing to reveal themselves through coordinated crisis responses that will demonstrate their superior capabilities while justifying emergency powers that eliminate democratic oversight. But rushed preparations create operational vulnerabilities that careful planning would have avoided. Resistance cells have identified key infrastructure nodes that support transition operations, communication systems that coordinate enhanced bloodline activities, transportation networks that move biological resources and personnel, financial systems that fund transition preparations, power grids that support underground facilities, all represent targets for disruption activities that could prevent or delay the transition. But the resistance faces a critical timeline challenge. Enhanced bloodline acceleration means the transition could begin at any time, but resistance networks aren't yet strong enough to prevent implementation. The success of human liberation depends on resistance growth outpacing enhanced bloodline preparations, a race against time that will determine the future of human civilization. The evidence suggests we're approaching a decisive moment in human history. Enhanced bloodlines are preparing to end their concealment and claim open dominion over human populations. But resistance networks are spreading awareness and developing capabilities that could prevent this transition and force enhanced bloodlines into negotiations that would fundamentally alter the relationship between humans and their parasitic rulers. The outcome depends on ordinary humans recognizing their true situation and choosing to support resistance activities rather than accepting the comfort and security that enhanced bloodlines promise in exchange for continued biological subjugation. The choice belongs to humanity, but only for as long as the balance of power remains uncertain. Behind this moment of crisis lies the ultimate truth about human potential. We are not the inferior species that enhanced bloodlines have conditioned us to believe we are. We are the host species whose biological and creative capabilities sustain parasites that have convinced us of their superiority, while depending entirely on our continued cooperation for their survival. The conspiracy that began in ancient Rome is approaching its climax, but the outcome is no longer predetermined. For the first time in recorded history, humans have the knowledge and capability to break free from parasitic control and then determine their own evolutionary path if they choose to act on that capability before enhanced bloodlines complete their transition to open rule. The final harvest approaches, but it may not be the harvest that enhanced bloodlines have planned for so long. Instead, it may be humanity's harvest of freedom from parasites who have fed on human civilization for millennia while concealing their complete dependence on the very species they have sought to dominate. We've followed the trail from burning Rome to modern Manhattan, from underground chambers beneath the Palatine Hill to pharmaceutical laboratories in Switzerland. We've uncovered evidence of a conspiracy that spans 2 millennia, operated by bloodlines whose enhanced genetics have given them absolute dominance over ordinary human civilization. The Roman Empire never fell, it simply evolved. What began as underground chambers where senators consumed human resources to maintain their transformed physiology has become a global network of institutions that continue the same essential function: harvesting biological materials to sustain enhanced bloodlines whose genetic modifications require constant supplementation. The Praetorian Guards became modern security forces. The Mithraic technicians became pharmaceutical researchers. The senatorial bloodlines became corporate executives and government officials, and the underground chambers became the vast networks of facilities that span every developed nation on Earth. But here's the final truth that makes this conspiracy truly terrifying. It's almost complete. The enhanced bloodlines that have operated in secret for 2,000 years are preparing to end their concealment. Every technological development, every social change, every political transformation of the past century has been designed to create conditions where their open rule will be welcomed by the very populations they've been harvesting. Consider the evidence. Genetic engineering presented as medical breakthrough, artificial intelligence designed to manage human resources more efficiently, surveillance networks that monitor every aspect of human life, and social conditioning that teaches populations to accept authority from their supposed genetic superiors. The missing persons, the suppressed archaeological discoveries, the classified research, all of it has been preparation for a world where enhanced beings rule openly over human population, conditioned to believe that such rule represents the natural evolution of civilization. We're not approaching a future where humans will be governed by artificial intelligence or corporate oligarchies. We're approaching the moment when the biological descendants of Rome's enhanced elite will finally step out of the shadows and claim open dominion over the species they've been secretly managing for millennia. The underground chambers still operate. The harvesting continues. The enhancement technologies grow more sophisticated every year. And the human populations that have unknowingly sustained their master's existence for 2,000 years are being prepared for the final revelation that they were never the dominant species on this planet. They were livestock, and soon they'll know it. But knowing this truth gives you a choice that most humans won't have when the revelation comes. You can recognize the signs, understand the systems, and perhaps find ways to avoid the fate that's been planned for the majority of humanity. Because now you know what the Roman Empire's most terrifying cover-up really was. Not just the concealment of underground activities or the suppression of historical evidence, but the systematic conditioning of human civilization to accept its eventual subjugation by beings whose enhanced capabilities were perfected in the depths beneath the eternal city. The conspiracy isn't ending, it's entering its final phase, and now you know why they never wanted this truth to see the light of day.